So we're joined by Irish rugby legend, Cork sporting icon Donal Lenihan. Donal, it's a lovely day. You were telling our camera and our production team there that it's always sunny in Cork.
Yeah, it's one of the best kept secrets. That's why we play so much sport down here. The weather is always brilliant. I don't know what you're giving out about up in Dublin all the time.
It's fierce cold up there, I don't know. It's nice to be down at Cork Con, like it's a constitution, it's an institution I think within Cork sport. And we were speaking earlier about just the rich history of rugby down here. Like you've got Sundays Well, Dolphin and a lot of clubs that are really ingrained in society down here, you know. And where would you put Con along those or among those? And how is rugby viewed down here these days, do you reckon?
It's the explosion in interest in rugby in the last 20 years is phenomenal, really. Going back to my own early days playing down here, you didn't have quite the same levels of support that you have now. I think the All-Ireland League, when it was introduced in 1991, was a massive game changer. The first 10 years of the AIL, I mean, this whole place will be jam-packed. You know, you're playing the likes of Shannon, Young Munsters here, you have 10,000 people. More so than Munster were attracting in interprovincials at the time, which is incredible when you see the way the game has gone. But you know, you look the Cork City clubs. You mentioned Dolphin, Sundays Well, Highfield. I played for UCC myself for 5 seasons. Played here with Con for another 10 seasons. Rugby in Cork has always been incredibly strong, and I think that has manifested itself with the amount of players that Cork has contributed to both Munster and Irish rugby over the last 100 years.
You mentioned recently I suppose it's almost a rivalry between Cork and Limerick, or at least it used to be. I remember speaking to Michael Kiernan recently about that. When the Munster lads got together, it was Cork versus Limerick until you were against the common enemy, which was Leinster. You know, but you mentioned how we're only getting a couple of Pro 12 games down in Cork, maybe 4 per season, and that maybe Cork fans are becoming a little bit disenfranchised with Munster. Do you think, given recent events, there's a sort of a sense of togetherness building again now, or how do you?
Yeah, I do. Look, I think there was, you know, unfortunately, I think Munster fans, not only in Cork and Limerick, but right across the world, they almost became greedy with the level of success that Munster achieved in the mid-noughties. You know, you had the desire to win the Heineken Cup, and then you win 2 and 3 years with some phenomenal players. Now, I think all those players would accept their grounding came through their clubs, specifically in the hotbed of the AIL, with so many Munster teams dominating that competition for the first 15 years of it. But look, there was always going to be a transition in Munster rugby. All, you know, the likes of the O'Gara's, Paul O'Connell's, Alan Quinlan's, you know, when these players, David Wallace, when they retired, they were always going to be difficult to replace, and it has taken time. In the middle of that, you had the redevelopment of Thomond Park, the fact that Limerick is now the base for all of Munster rugby. Cork sports people are proud. They always have been, and they always feel that they can contribute to all sports at all levels. So there was disquiet. There's no point in saying anything other than that. But I think it's amazing. You know, maybe it took the sad passing of Anthony Foley to sort of knock people back into reality, get everybody behind Munster rugby. I think that has happened. The reaction since his sad passing has been phenomenal. You know, that the Champions Cup game against Glasgow the day after Anthony's funeral was just one of those incredible days, incredible moments. Glasgow are a very good side, have been for a long time. For Munster to defeat them in the manner they did, I think a lot of inspiration came from the terraces, and you know, I hope that will continue now over the rest of the season. I think Rassie Erasmus is doing an excellent job. He was thrown in, if you like, in the deep end when you see the trauma that surrounded the early part of the season, but the reaction has been very positive, and you hope that will continue now over the rest of the season.
100%. Do you feel that where in the 90s and early 2000s and even beyond that we would have had a strong Cork presence at international level with, of course, the 9-10 axis that was Strings and Rog? Like, now we see Simon Zebo properly establishing himself. I think he possibly was almost rested in that last test against Australia because he'd taken such a beating against the All Blacks a weekend before. Peter O'Mahony is becoming a seriously important player, and when he discovers or rediscovers his fitness, should be an integral part of the Six Nations. Do you think it is important for Cork Rugby to have that sort of a couple of staples in that Ireland team that people from Cork young kids kicking in the background here in Con are looking at these guys going, that could be me in a couple of years?
Yeah, hugely so. I mean, you know, even in the autumn series, in addition to those lads, Billy Holland got his first cap. Billy is up here since he's 5 years of age, as Peter O'Mahony. I remember Peter O'Mahony in the dressing rooms above with his dad. When I was playing for Cork Con, he was always the one in the dressing room. And that's the history and tradition that we've always had here. John Ryan, a tight head, also capped against Canada. So a lot of good, talented young players coming through. And the thing that we love is those players never forget where they came from. You'll see them anytime they have time. They're up here, they're mingling with the kids. And I think that's what is the key to the success of professional rugby in Ireland. Young kids can go out to Musgrave Park or Thomond Park to come up to Cork Con or wherever, and they can see their heroes in the flesh. When you can stand at the sideline on a Friday night and watch a game, not like soccer where all your best players are abroad and you never get to see them or speak to them. And I think the players are hugely invested in younger players in that they respect that there's only a matter of 10 years since they were in that position. And again, I suppose Irish rugby, it's a small community. You don't have a huge amount of players. So any young aspiring player, they're entitled to dream. There is a chance that they can make it to the top. Unlike, say, when you go to soccer in the UK, there's so many thousands of players who go over on trials. The world is a much smaller place now in that a lot of these clubs are signing players at 16, 17 from foreign countries. So the Irish players don't get the same opportunities in soccer that they may have had 20 years ago. So I think for any young fella, the opportunity to play professional sport is hugely enticing. And by virtue of the fact that they're all based here, you know, the fact that you can represent the place where you were born, where you were raised, it was one of the key elements that kept Brian O'Driscoll, for example, in Leinster when he could have gone to France on much bigger money. So I mean, that dream is there for any young fella, and I think it's hugely important.
And of course, you mentioned in your book, Donal Lenihan, My Life in Rugby, and it's aptly named in ways, but you mentioned how as a rugby player you would have gone to watch Cork and people would be shouting things like, I think you described them as gone beans, would be shouting, you know, are you not at the wrong game?
Yeah, I just get that concept. Yeah.
It's ironic because we're stood here and just behind us is Parky Ring, right next to Cork Con, you know. And
well, we've always had a huge association with the GAA and Con down through the years. I mean, Blackrock Hurling Club, many times when they've had problems with their pitches, they come down, they train here. I remember Christy Heffernan, the great Kilkenny full forward. He came to Cork, but he used to spend his winters training with us down the back field there. I remember throwing him into the second row one night. Christy was a big boy, but just to show what it was really like. Yeah. And all he was doing was complaining about his ears coming out of the scrummaging.
Right. So he should have worn a helmet in it.
Exactly. Well, we helped to toughen him up. I'm not sure whether Cork appreciated that because he killed us in one All-Ireland final that I can remember. Yeah, but look, I was born and raised in the GAA. I loved nothing better during the summer when you were in your off season. Follow Cork hurlers, Cork footballers, days out in Thurles for the Munster hurling final. I mean, no sport anywhere in the world could match the intensity, the rivalry, and just the spirit and the sense of occasion that you get in a Munster hurling final. So yeah, I mean, that's still part and parcel of my DNA. I'm really looking forward to Páirc Uí Chaoimh being completed, and hopefully maybe even seeing a rugby international there in a World Cup, which would be phenomenal when you consider where we've come from. You know, I mentioned Semple Stadium. When you look at the reaction of the Tipperary County Board because they haven't got a rugby match. I mean, who would have sensed that you'd be in this position 20 years ago? So it's all for the good of sport, and it's incredible. I think the contribution the GAA are making to Ireland would have no possibility of hosting a Rugby World Cup without the backing of the GAA, without the fantastic stadia that they have all over the country. So I think, you know, if there was one event that would unite the whole island of Ireland and all the different sports within Ireland, it would be Ireland winning that Rugby World Cup bid. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
I think it was on Sean O'Rourke's show on RTE, you mentioned that when the Cork County Board voted against opening Croke Park to Irish rugby and football at the time, you were receiving phone calls from JBM, from Billy Morgan saying, look, this isn't our view on rugby, this is just a decision. That must have been sort of surreal.
Yeah, it was. Look, we pride ourselves in Cork of being, we have an excellent standard in all sports right across the board: soccer, hockey, GAA, hurling, rugby, basketball. We've had a rich sporting history, and everybody in Cork sport has always supported sports people in other sports and have been very proud of them. So, like, to have Cork as one of the few counties that voted against opening up Croke Park for both soccer and rugby when Lansdowne Road was being redeveloped was actually incredibly disappointing. And as you mentioned, I did. Jimmy Barry Murphy, who I know really well, rang me up with a huge sense of almost embarrassment. Billy Morgan was another. Remember meeting fellas like Tomás Mulcahy and Ger Cunningham. And the views of the county board at that time were not representative, certainly, of the players of the era. But again, look, I think that has all moved on. The success in terms of what happened when Croke Park was opened up, that incredible day when Ireland defeated England, the respect for God Save the Queen when it was played, and then a rendering of Arán na Bhíon, I think that was never heard even in Croke Park. When you consider, you know, the amount of fantastic All-Ireland finals you've had over the year, it was almost like a nation growing up together, and sport was the reason why that happened. So look, things have changed down here in Cork even since that vote was taken, and the fact that Páirc Uí Chaoimh is now on the agenda to host a World Cup game, should we get, I think is just reflective of that.
Donal, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks a million for joining us for Cork Week on Balls.ie, and we'll chat to you again soon, hopefully. That was really interesting.
Cheers. Thank you.